to the special meeting of the Brisbane Planning Commission, Tuesday, December 1st, 2015, 7:30 p.m., Brisbane City Hall, 50 Park Place, Brisbane. Roll call.
Commissioner Anderson?
Present.
Commissioner Doe?
Present.
Commissioner Manier?
Here.
Commissioner Parker?
Here.
Commissioner Reinhardt?
Here.
Okay. So on to new business. Public hearing. Brisbane Baylands Final Environmental Impact Report and related planning application. Baylands Concept Plans. Brisbane Baylands Specific Plan. General Plan Amendment Case GP-01-06. Community Group Presentations. Universal Paragon Corporation. Applicant. Owners are various. APN is various. So just to give a general breakdown for the public, the presentations are going to be by the following community groups: San Francisco Bay Area Renters Federation, Candlestick Preservation Association, Brisbane Family Fund Center. So could we have the San Francisco Bay Area Renters Federation?
Hi, my name is Leora Tonwatko. I'm going to speak tonight in support of the developer-sponsored plan, which includes 4,400 units of housing. To give you an idea of what I'm going to talk about tonight, I'm going to talk about what happens when you build offices without building housing, the implications of available housing for my generation and future generations in the Bay Area, and I'll close with how this project can contribute to a better, more affordable version of the Bay Area, and also the implications for Brisbane. So I'll start. So I want to talk about sustainability and the jobs housing balance. Sustainability can be really complicated, but we can all agree that less cars on the road is better for the environment. And if people work here but have to drive in, it means the environment suffers. We haven't done a really good job in the Bay Area of putting jobs near places with abundant housing. That graphic, 1.75 million jobs are within 35 miles of downtown San Francisco, but over 55% of these jobs are 10 to 35 miles from a place where there's a lot of housing. This data is from Brookings, and I have a slide if you guys have questions about my sources at the end. The little pie chart on the bottom shows the 55% here. That salmon-colored chunk shows that the majority of the jobs in the Bay Area require people to commute. And this is bad both for people but also for the environment too. In the nation, the Bay Area has the highest concentration of mega commuters, people that drive over 90 minutes in their car and 50 miles one way to their office. This has incredible repercussions for their mental health and their overall lives. It's a little bit hard to see, but I think the most striking data from this infographic is 40% more likely to divorce if you have a commute that's over.
Hold on a second. Yeah. It's the Bay Area as compared to what?
The nation. Like the region.
The Bay Area has the highest, okay, in the nation.
Yeah. So I was really surprised by all of those findings with all of the implications for your blood pressure, your neck and back pain, things like that. I'm sure that you all saw the article last week in the Chronicle about how the commute starts at 5 a.m. The Bay Bridge has seen a 75% rise in the number of commuters going through the toll plaza between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. So this is what happens when you create jobs but not housing. We've done a really good job, I think, recently in creating a lot of jobs, and it's good times economically for the Bay Area. But so few people can afford to live here. And thankfully, I think we can start to fix this problem by building housing, particularly on sites like the Brisbane Baylands. It's also, a national pattern. Jason Furman, who's the chair of the President's Council of Economic Advisors, he spoke last week at the Urban Institute, and it was a big deal because it means that housing, as a crisis, it's making its way onto the national stage. And he spoke about policy solutions at the federal level, but every single time at the end of one of his paragraphs, he came back to local politics. And that's what we're doing here tonight, right? That's where we can really make a change. And so the decisions that you guys come to as a planning commission are so critical to this whole entire thing. I wanted to read something that Gabe Metcalf, who's the president of SPUR, said at a luncheon. When he said this, the whole room applauded, and I think there are a lot of people behind me that agree with him. He said, "I know that most people in the Bay Area are appalled at the anti-immigrant agenda that they hear coming from other parts of the country. But we may as well be building a wall ourselves by our refusal to allow new housing to be built. We have a wonderful quality of life here, and we have an incredible economy. So yes, a lot of people want to come here to be a part of it. And what I want to say to everyone who is already here, as compassionately as I can, is that it's going to be okay. We can make room for more people. And when someone who's my age, I'm 28, when we hear more people, I immediately think of the family that I want to have, my grandkids, all of the things that are in the future. And I also think about my friends who would love to live here, they would love to work here, but they can't necessarily afford to live." This slide also talks about how little the Bay Area as a region has done to permit some of the housing units in the past 10 years. I think there's been a lot of politics in terms of building housing. So I wanted to reiterate again some of the ideas that that Gabe said last week, talking about idealists, talking about being a community that cares about people having a fair chance. We care about the environment. We believe in having communities that welcome everyone. So we need to change some of the planning decisions that have been made in the past few years. We need to move forward, and we need to live up to the values that we have here as a culture. And I know that there are large issues. I speak a lot in San Francisco and around the peninsula, and we have problems with affordability and displacement, but it's here in these kinds of decisions and these kinds of proposals that we can start to shape the future. We can decide what Brisbane is going to be and then what the region's going to look like. Right now, you know, artists, teachers, nonprofit workers, they can't afford to live here. They're leaving. And so when you have a project of this scale, there's so much at stake. And lastly, I want to talk about how you guys, the residents of Brisbane, can benefit from this project. If you build this proposal, there will be people investing in your community. For example, the parks will be maintained through the homeowners' fees. There will also be revenue to the city's general fund when units change hands. So there's definitely something in it for the city. This project also has opportunities for the residents, the current residents. It would create employment opportunities for them and amenities. And it would also bring people like me and my cohort, my generation, to, you know, patronize your businesses, your restaurants, go to the cultural events at the venues. And we just want a chance to be a part of that. So let's not make our traffic problem worse by building offices without housing, and let's create a place where people want to come and spend time. Let's take this opportunity to grow this community. And I'm not just advocating growth for the sake of growth. I'm advocating for the spirit of the Bay Area. Younger people like me, we're a dynamic, creative, inclusive group. Those are the things we were raised to think are important. And we really want our region to reflect that. So as you make your recommendations to the City Council, please consider your legacy here and your role in shaping the Baylands in 20 or 30 years, and all of the people, the thousands of people that could call this place home. Thank you. Do you have questions?
Actually, could you spell your name?
Leora. And my last name is Tanjuatco.
So I just want to remind you, I know that there's not much text here, but if you, for those who are viewing it and who view the video later, if you have the presentation and you would like to turn it in to the staff to be part of the record, please do so.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions? Or
No, none for me. Thank you for the
No?
presentation.
Thank you. Candlestick Preservation Association?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask how much overlap there is in this material versus what's already in the FEIR? It's fairly similar.
Zero.
Zero overlap.
Hopefully.
Great. I will
Yes.
read it.
Hi, my name is Brad Lee, and I am with the Candlestick Preservation Association. I'm going to do something that you're never supposed to do with public speaking, and I'm going to read a lot of stuff tonight, but the reason for that is it's very technical, and I don't want to miss anything. So hopefully you don't fall asleep, had coffee. Anyway, yeah, I've been working on this
You didn't bring the coffee for us, though.
I didn't bring any coffee, I'm sorry. I've been working on this for about 2 years, just by way of introduction, and I'm actually very excited to be here tonight because this is the first time I get to actually speak in front of some of the people. I have always wondered, I write things, send it in, who reads it? Maybe nobody, hopefully, but I think you all...
I read it.
You read it. Okay, fantastic. So anyway, without further ado, let me just jump right in. So on October 29th, you heard from many windsurfers. They passionately described the importance of and the threat to the unique and valuable resource adjacent to the Baylands. This evening, I will follow up with a technical discussion. I will demonstrate how a significant portion of the Baylands EIR relating to this resource is flawed and should not be certified under CEQA requirements. Let me advance here. I will rely on a recently completed audit prepared by EnviroComp Consulting. EnviroComp is a consulting firm specializing in meteorological and atmospheric science and analysis. They have audited Section 4.m of the EIR and supporting documents and have found the research underlying the section does not meet critical industry standards. These standards are required by CEQA to ensure evidence is scientific and factual where feasible. The services contract between Brisbane and the EIR consultant also requires these standards. Yet, in EnviroComp's words, current studies are highly uncertain and incomplete, and the results are not trustworthy. I will conclude by requesting the EIR be brought in line with CEQA requirements prior to certification, or that subsequent project-specific EIRs be required.
Can I ask why
Yes.
EnviroCorp Consulting reviewed the section?
Yes, several of us actually commissioned the study.
So this was privately funded?
It was. We spent a lot of time. Very thoughtful work went into preparing public comments. Unfortunately, none of us in the public are meteorologists. And in fact, in the last hearing that we attended, a lot of you asked very good questions. The problem is, none of you are sort of scientists on the level of the EIR consultant.
Right.
We felt that was a big problem. We needed to have another group look at this, and I'll explain kind of why and how they did that. But thank you for that question. So EIR Section 4.m deals with impacts on recreational resources. For the EIR, a model of the project site and proposed development was analyzed with a wind tunnel experiment. Conclusions were drawn that the adjacent windsurfing resource would not be substantially degraded under any proposed circumstance. This was one of the few EIR sections where primary research and experimentation was conducted by the EIR consultant and not by an independent third-party specialist. To verify this research met industry and CEQA standards, an independent professional consulting firm was commissioned by the public to conduct an audit. Now I have the first figure here. This refers to the practical sailing area in green, which begins at the launch located at the upper right-hand corner of that green area and extends to a range that includes the safest conditions located nearest Highway 101 and away from the highway on days when the wind is more westerly. Okay. we have another figure. So this is a view of the sailing area. You can see this is on a sort of a light wind day. On light wind days, the wind only comes over a smaller portion of the area closest to Highway 101, which is also the area most impacted by upwind development. Okay. So I will first review CEQA requirements for impact evidence. There's 3 points here. Significant impact determinations must be based to the extent possible on scientific and factual data. Speculation and unsubstantiated opinion shall not constitute substantial evidence, and decisions about significant effects shall be based on substantial evidence in the record of the lead agency. We'll go on now to talk about the concept of professional standards of care, which distinguish professional work from that of lay practitioners. Standard of care refers to practices upheld in accordance with what is widely accepted as proper by a responsible body of professionals skilled in the current state of a particular art. In other words, modern industry standards. Professional work done below these standards may be subject to liability for negligence. Every state regulates professional engineering and requires such standards in all public works. These standards are often published. For example, the National Institute of Standards and Technology Technical Note 1655, which is entitled Toward a Standard on the Wind Tunnel Method, prescribes requirements for accurate, reproducible, validated, and reliable estimations when conducting a wind tunnel experiment. They state, serious errors can result from improperly run wind tunnel experiments. In the EIR services contract, standard of care is explicit. This is the contract between ESA, or what was formerly ESA, and Brisbane. Okay, standard of care is explicit in this services contract. It reads, the consultant shall use the standard of care in its profession to comply with all applicable federal, state, and local laws, codes, ordinances, and regulations in connection with the performance of its services. If research for the EIR was conducted below industry practices, then there would necessarily be a serious question about whether the results are reliable, trustworthy, and whether they are scientific and factual as required by CEQA. I should probably pause and ask, are you still awake? Yes. Do you have questions?
With you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So now we turn to EnviroComp Consulting. I'm just going to read the background of these professionals. I think they're really very credible people, and I want to communicate that to you by way of reading about their background here. So, who prepared this? It wasn't just some interns or something somewhere. Anyway, the audit was prepared by Dr. Paolo Zanetti, who is a qualified environmental professional as certified by the Institute of Professional Environmental Practice. He's also the president of EnviroComp and professor of environmental sciences at the Wessex Institute of Technology. Dr. Zanetti has performed studies in scientific research and environmental sciences for 4 decades. His activities have covered peer research in the fields of atmospheric sciences and numerical modeling, written publications, seminars and courses, project management, environmental consulting, editorial productions, and expert testimony. He has written more than 300 publications and 40-plus books and book chapters, including the book Air Pollution Modeling, which was completed in 1990 and was the first comprehensive book in the field and still a widely used textbook. A 4-volume multi-author revised and expanded edition of this book has been published during the 2003 to 2010 under Dr. Zanetti's direction and chief editorial management. Significantly, this 4-volume edition includes a chapter on wind tunnel modeling. In addition to his academic and scientific achievements, Dr. Zanetti has worked on several litigation projects and provided testimony at depositions and trials in more than 35 cases. I think I'll skip the background of the other gentleman who assisted, but also very credible scientist. So now we'll stick to the actual, or turn to the actual report, the actual audit that was prepared. And I should also say that the second tab in your book here is the contents of that report, and I'll be providing that to the record as well. So I will now paraphrase EnviroComp's findings regarding standard of care. First of all, the only scientific tool used for analyzing wind-related impacts in the EIR was a wind tunnel. Empirical formulas and computer models are regularly used in the vast literature studying building-wind interaction. That the EIR makes use of none of these other means of studying this issue, especially given the project complexity, is surprising and does not comply with standard analysis practice. Computer modeling is a standard tool for studying wind patterns in a hypothetical setting. Without a computer model, results are highly questionable. Several models should have been used in this project to simulate the wind flow in a complex terrain and validate the findings of a wind tunnel model. These include the EPA recommended MM5 and WRF models and industry standard computational fluid dynamics packages such as Fluent and OpenFOAM. Especially in this case, given the complexity of the flow patterns in the area, the complex upwind topology, and the large area to be modeled, computer modeling is indispensable. This is because with a computer model, one can simulate the wind pattern applying real-world wind flow speeds, terrain, and building heights. Rather, with the wind tunnel, because of the limits of its physical size, buildings and surrounding terrain cannot be adequately accounted. Application of scaling factors, which are the R values used by the EIR consultant in their report, became necessary to translate smaller wind tunnel speeds to higher real-world speeds. While the use of such scaling factors is applicable for simple theoretical flows, scaling factors are highly uncertain for the complex flow situation we are dealing with in this EIR. And I should note that if you're wondering about how hard is it to do this computer modeling and where do you get this information, comprehensive topographic data files for this computer modeling task are readily available from the government and other sources to do for all the background topography information and so forth. I have here a figure which shows, all of you are familiar with this, but it really highlights the complexity of the upwind terrain and the importance of modeling a large upwind expanse, which is, to the best of everyone's knowledge, not what was done in the EIR. There was a very limited upwind area that was modeled and a very simplistic model of the upwind flows. Again, wind tunnel modeling is not amenable to such complexity and scale. I have here now an example of a shorthand empirical formula. Again, no empirical formulas of this sort were used, however basic they may seem in the EIR to validate what was done. The shorthand empirical formula for building wind wake extent is roughly 10 times to 30 times the building height above downwind grade. While the wind tunnel experiments cannot be relied on for precision because of the reasons given in the audit, the extent of impacts in those experiments is consistent with this formula. In other words, what you see in this graphic is actually confirmed in terms of extent by the wind tunnel.
Can you identify that 170-foot block in the upper right-hand corner?
Yeah, so
what buildings are those?
That's the Executive Park project, and that number is based on the San Francisco's the planning figures submitted to San Francisco. So again, we are not trying here to offer any sort of scientific analysis. We're just giving you, to the best of the information that's available to us, the potential impacts here.
Right, that's outside the project area, though, so I just wanted to note what it was.
It is. Why it's listed here is because CEQA requires a cumulative assessment. And when you look cumulatively at what's going on here, although maybe one or two buildings or whatever may not contribute in total to a total degradation of the area, collectively there's a 71% in this case if you accept this figure or these formulas.
Yeah, I'm not questioning its inclusion. I just wanted to know what it was.
Fair enough. Yes. Absolutely. Good point. So let me just step back. Is this any other questions on this slide? Because I think it's somewhat telling. Does it make sense?
So, what is the 60? Is that?
So 60 is recology, and
That's what I thought.
What we basically did was we tried very hard to find any information about what that possibly could look like for this slide. There's no heights. There's no information other than that little sort of building footprint that you see there. Mm-hmm. In fact, we couldn't even find height limits in the HC zoning district. So what we did was we took 60, which was the lowest height that we found in the Baylands plan, and just applied that there.
Do you know how high the current recology buildings are in that area?
I don't, but David, who's an architect?
Yeah, I mean, they look to be about between 50 and 60 feet, depending on where you're taking your
I think you
Actually, could you come to the mic? Because people at
maybe
home are
Brad
not
could
going to be
just
able to hear
repeat
you.
what
Sure.
answered.
David's an architect. He drove by and visually inspected it. We couldn't find any information.
So it would be better if David spoke.
Yeah, it looks to be about 50 to 60 feet from the building, from the plinth of the building. I mean, it's hard to tell. It's a little bit higher than the road. So, I can't tell. It depends what data point you take it from. So, but it's the driveway up from the exit off of 101 is higher, so it starts higher. But just looking at the building, I could get a pretty good idea. It was no more than 70 feet, but it was probably somewhere between 50 and 70 feet.
What's a clear span for industrial?
Please speak into the mic because people at home cannot hear you. Brad?
Yeah, he asked what a clear span was for industrial buildings. It depends on what the building and what they're doing on it. In this case, they have a lot of overhead equipment, so it's pretty high. But I didn't base it on that. I based it on what I could see and what I know from size of trucks, because there are trucks parked out there, and you could kind of estimate from there and from building materials to see what it looked like.
So that means then that the shadow shown by the 60-foot building approximately represents the current conditions?
No.
For ecology, yeah.
Well,
if
Or
it's,
recology?
Well,
Just the shadow for the 60-foot recology building?
The recology building, this shows the current and expansion plans, right? So
Right, so I was asking if the current is less than 60 or is already 60.
no, the current, we estimate the height is 60. But what's shown here is not only in terms of the footprint, right? The plan view shows the existing as well as the proposed expansion.
I see what you're saying.
Right, I'm just talking about the proportion of the red that's behind the 60-foot. There are these diagonal lines going down. I don't have a laser pointer, but there are diagonal lines.
Yeah, I know what
right
you're asking.
there. Yeah, I'm wondering if that portion of the red is existing conditions.
This is existing here.
Right. Okay.
This is proposed, or this is all of this is, the proposed.
So partially the height is correct, but the footprint is bigger because this shows the added area. The existing footprint of recology is smaller than what's shown in this diagram.
So this will be the final design after they extend the ecology facility.
Yeah,
Am I
if
correct?
they extend it.
This is the best, to the best
Yeah.
of our ability. This is actually what was in the DEIR here. That's where
Right.
we got this.
Okay.
Right, but I'm just trying to figure out how the shadow of this building is larger than what's currently there. So you're saying some of the buildings there are 60 feet, but it's not as large as that rectangle?
Correct. This we believe to be currently 60 feet. And then we anticipate that the future building height will also be on that order of 60 feet.
Okay.
So
We don't have any information about that as to how high the future buildings will be. So you just assume that.
So in essence, you're underscoring the lack of information for future projections as to the impact of the wind.
right. I mean, we have no way of knowing. I have no way of knowing. EnviroComp had no way of knowing what was actually modeled. How they possibly could model something we don't even know the heights. That's the point.
Understood.
So just to clarify, the red area is the shadow over the saline?
Correct. So
Okay.
the formula.
That's what I thought. I'm just making sure.
It's very, very simple math. Again, we're not trying to provide a alternate analysis here. We're just illustrating this. Thank you. The simplicity of and the value of using these empirical formulas as a shorthand to basically back check what you're doing with the. And if there is a big discrepancy, that's a question, right?
So the biggest impact is as a result of the ecology, right? If you look at that triangle, the red area is all because of the.
No, the 125-foot building below looks to have a larger shadow to me.
Right. Yeah. That
is,
Yeah, that would have the, and then 160.
This is for the west-northwest wind. It's a simple model of west-northwest wind. Actually, what you find here is that the wind changes directions depending on exactly where you are, but we've just simply simplified the situation, said west-northwest wind. Of course, when you have a northwest wind or a westerly wind, you're going to have different buildings are going to impact the area in different ways. So this is just one case. Yes.
So going back to the executive park, that shadow is already there, or that's going to be there in the future? I'm a little confused.
So, to the best of my knowledge, Executive Park is not 100% built.
Right.
It
that's
could,
what I thought.
now that information may be stale, but
Right.
the 170-foot figure was taken from planning documents, not sort of as-built or anything like that.
Okay.
We do know, anecdotally, there is, when you're out there on the water, there's two things you see, okay? You can see this any day you go and watch people, or you're on the water. You go out, you leave the shore, and then there's a hole. And this is what happens. This is why it's a problem. You can't just consider an overall reduction in the wind speed and then everything sort of evens out. It's just sort of slower. What you find is you have these holes, and when you have holes, it sort of ruins things. Okay, you have to get through the hole, and then you have to have an acceleration area to ramp up again, and so forth. So I can't really think of an analog, but in any event, the hole that you see there from that executive park is very pronounced today. And the other thing that you get on the water is an overpowering stench from recology. Some days it's a nice perfumed garbage smell, but those are the lucky days. So we do know that the wind is kind of coming directly over these structures and impacting the area. Okay, let me pick up the pace a bit. So the second point that EnviroComp is making is that there is no sensitivity or air analysis done or documented for the wind tunnel experiments. No scientific study of this type should be accepted without an air estimate or analysis of potential air impacts. The scientific method requires determining the uncertainty of these calculations. Results without uncertainty analysis can be highly misleading. The third point is that experiments are poorly described. It is standard practice for authors to explain in detail how the wind tunnel experiments were performed. Oops. For example, to present the formulas describing the similarity scales between the physical model and the real world, to discuss how the flow is generated and how the inflow is specified, to discuss the Reynolds numbers of the simulations, to explain if and if so, how terrain features are accounted for in specifying the inflow, and to describe how the wind is measured at different locations in the tunnel. These key factors and other important ones are not sufficiently explained for us, and by us I mean EnviroComp, as qualified scientists and engineers who have worked on dozens of similar projects to understand what was actually done. And so now I want to show just one figure. There was very little information in the EIR, as you probably found yourselves in reading this, about what was actually done. This was one of the few images that was shown of the test plan, but even from this, you have you essentially have more questions than you have answers from this image. At least that was our conclusion, the conclusion of EnviroComp. I'm not sure if that's a universal feeling or not. The fourth point, experiments were not validated against certified test results. We note that the wind tunnel literature is clear on the danger of producing erroneous results. For example, I refer again to the NIST Technical Note 1655, which states serious errors can result from improperly running wind tunnel experiments. They also state that the simulation needs to be validated against certified test results. No such validation has taken place or been documented. The fifth point, no efforts appear to have been made to perform a proper literature review and study past effects of developments. A wind-building interaction is a well-studied topic in the literature. We note that no efforts appear to have been made in the EIR to perform proper literature review and study past effects of urban developments. And as an example of this, and this example was provided to ESA in the public comments. This is Aruba. It was a very, very popular windsurfing destination, and it's well known throughout the world as now a place that you don't go because of the upwind commercial development. These hotels have essentially destroyed this resource for the people of Aruba and visitors there. Anyway, this was not studied, not utilized in the EIR consultants' work. 6 point, segmentation of the wind tunnel model will introduce errors, which may be very large and difficult to quantify. Because of the size of the model and the limitations of the wind tunnel, the model was broken into segments or strips, and each strip was tested independently. How can we trust results produced in strips? Why was the test model not designed to fit? According to the EIR consultant, the test areas were segmented to complete physical measurements because the geographic areas were so large. In their words, such segmenting is common practice and does not introduce appreciable error into the measurement process. This is incorrect. Any segmentation of the region will introduce errors, which may be very large and difficult to quantify. So now I will, we only have 3 more points, okay, and they are going to, 4 more points, and they're going to focus now on the CEQA compliance aspects of the work that the EIR consultant did. So the first point is no efforts appear to have been made to establish objective scientific parameters for assessing whether a substantial degradation in the resource is expected. The EIR states that CEQA guidelines indicate that a project would have a significant effect on the environment if it would substantially degrade the existing windsurfing recreational resource. We were surprised to find no effort to establish objective scientific parameters for assessing whether a substantial degradation is expected. Only by defining in advance and quantifying in an objective manner what a substantial degradation is, can we then calculate whether future developments will create an adverse impact. The task is relatively simple. We know that there are optimal, moderate, and impossible days for windsurfing at the site. A simple analysis of the meteorological parameters, including wind speed and turbulence, during different conditions would lead to the identification of those wind flow changes that are critical and may transform a good windsurfing day into a bad one, based on a predefined degradation level. The second point here on the CEQA compliance front, the claim that these incremental changes in wind speed and turbulence in the launch and sailing areas are expected to be undetectable to most windsurfers does not appear to be a valid scientific statement. At the sort of the root of everything we're doing here, the scientific method would require first to establish what is detectable for the average windsurfer. Afterwards, calculations may be performed to verify if, when, and where detectable variations are found. The scientific method also requires determining the uncertainty of these calculations. Results without uncertainty analysis can be highly misleading. Moreover, the real issue here is not detectability, but impairment. The real question is whether or not the variations in wind speed and turbulence caused by the urban development will impair windsurfing in the area, and to which degree in different locations. This basic question has not been answered in the EIR, and much more scientific work is needed to properly address this issue. Without a well-defined scientific approach and without objective a priori quantifications, conclusions are impossible and remain highly subjective and uncertain. In fact, the EIR states that there are no known critical thresholds in wind speed or wind speed reduction that cause a substantial degradation of the windsurfing resource. It is mandatory, as a prerequisite for any study such as this one, to identify these critical thresholds. And again, this is another core point, so please stop me if you're if this doesn't make sense or you have some question about it. Okay. The third point here, experimental results for much of the windsurfing area yielded no data, especially those areas most susceptible to impacts and most critical for windsurfing given safety concerns and wind flow patterns. For example, the wind tunnel experiments did not provide results in a critical area near the shore along Highway 101, which is the region of maximum interest for windsurfing. And now I'll show you 3 figures to illustrate this in real terms. So this first graphic here, again, we have the practical sailing area, and we have the data points that were collected for the west wind condition, and these data points were collected from the wind tunnel experiments done in 2012. Okay, and what you see, the percentages are the consultant's estimate of the average wind speed reduction after the development relative to the baseline no-build condition. This second slide is now the data points that were collected by the EIR consultant in 2012 for the west-northwest wind condition. And you see there's very few points here. This is right in the EIR. There's no sleight of hand here. This is exactly, if you look at the 2012 wind tunnel data points, this is what they are. And then we have finally for the northwest wind condition, there's no data points that were collected in 2012. The final point regarding CEQA compliance that EnviroComp makes is that a meteorological station should have been installed at the site. Data should have been collected and analyzed to identify and categorize favorable and unfavorable wind flow scenarios. After these scientific efforts, it would have been possible to determine in a scientific, objective way whether or not expected variations in wind and turbulence caused by the new buildings can cause substantial degradation. Even the word substantial needs to be expressed in proper terms. Is the degradation of windsurfing in the area substantial if it occurs 10% of the days, 5%, or even 1%?
Was any indication given of how long a period of time that data needs to be collected to produce scientifically significant results?
No. There is a more in-depth discussion certainly in the report. And by the way, if you do have any questions, we can obviously connect you with these folks. So I believe it's the last figure I'm going to show you here is a picture that all of us on the water are very, very familiar with. Basically, I just wanted to show you this because to underscore that you can't really understand what's going on here by sort of looking at historic data that may be miles away, such as the San Francisco Airport sensor. You really have to know what's happening on the ground. You have to take observations in the field here to establish what's going on. It's a complex system here. So that's it for the audit. But I just wanted to bring one more point to bear, that you may be thinking, well, geez, is it practical or is it a big deal to put in a meteorological weather station there? What's involved in that? So I thought it would be interesting to compare to the traffic study that was done for the EIR. An independent transportation consulting firm prepared a study for the EIR, which included collecting field observations at 20 study intersections. So basically they, got the permits and installed sensors at 20 intersections, collected data for a period of time, which is no mean feat. They utilized industry standard traffic analysis and signal coordination software, cross-validated and calibrated their models, assumptions, and data sources using multiple methods. They utilized industry standard practices for forecasting the impacts of the development on the traffic system, and they applied industry standard thresholds for determining the degradation of service that would be experienced through the development. In short, they did everything that a reasonable professional would expect. According to EnviroComp, none of these practices were adopted in the wind tunnel experiment. Let me just briefly restate. I know there's a lot of information. Let me just run through it very quickly now, what the key points here were. The first is that the only scientific tool for analyzing wind-related impacts in the EIR was a wind tunnel. No sensitivity or air analysis was done or documented. The experiments are poorly described. Experiments were not validated against certified test results. No efforts appear to have been made to perform proper literature review and study past effects of development. Segmentation of the wind tunnel model will introduce errors which may be very large and difficult to quantify. No efforts appear to have been made to establish objective scientific parameters for assessing whether substantial degradation in the resource is expected. The principal claim that these incremental changes in wind speed and turbulence in the launch and sailing areas are expected to be undetectable to most windsurfers does not appear to be a valid scientific statement. Experimental results for much of the windsurfing area yielded no data, and a meteorological station should have been installed at the site. So finally, we come full circle, return to CEQA requirements, and consider now how they did. Okay, so the first is scientific and factual data. Were significant impact determinations based to the extent possible on scientific and factual data? The answer is no, as scientific data could have only been obtained by adhering to the scientific method. We discussed that, how that's not the case. Speculation and unsubstantiated opinion. Was critical evidence actually speculation or unsubstantiated opinion? The answer is yes. as the serious failure to apply to applicable professional standards of care means that conclusions drawn from the research experiment were, and I quote, untrustworthy, uncertain, and incomplete. Finally, substantial evidence in the record. Was substantial evidence well documented in the record of the lead agency explicitly or by reference to publicly available documents? The answer is no, as the experiments were poorly or vaguely described, preventing a reasonable understanding and assessment of what was actually conducted. So, in essence, what was done for the EIR was not a scientific study. It was a research experiment. That's a very important distinction. And I hope I've made that very clear this evening here. So the research experiment was not conducted with the proper controls and procedures to allow scientifically valid conclusions to be drawn per CEQA standards. In order for the EIR to be valid, this portion of the EIR should be brought in line with industry standards, or it should be omitted altogether, and subsequent project-specific EIRs should be required to thoroughly analyze impacts to this unique and valuable resource. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
At our last presentation, someone brought up the fact that the building, oh, wait a minute, I can't remember the name of the building, in Oyster Point.
Yes, Genentech.
Yes. Do you know how that EIR was done? Do you know what happened?
I've looked very hard to find that, and there was no, as far as I can tell, no discussion of wind impacts whatsoever.
But they built a ramp.
They did build a ramp, which shows me that there was some mitigation there. The ramp can really only be used for one purpose. It can only be used for water sports.
Uh-huh. And that was built when?
I can't
Oh, you don't
recall.
know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, clearly that's not a site that people use anymore. I do have these. These were copies of the, and I don't know how long you all have been on the commission, so maybe you've seen these. It sounds like you have. These were the public comments that we put together, dated 2013 now at this point.
I think we've all seen it.
You've all seen that?
Yeah.
Okay.
If those are the comments in the FEIR,
Yes.
Yeah,
we've seen that.
Yes.
we've seen this.
Fantastic. All right.
Great.
Thank you again for your time, and I hope
Thank you.
you aren't too asleep now.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the presentation.
So again, we invite all of our organizations to submit the written and the presentations to our staff to be included.
Yeah, you can take that. I'll give you.
Brisbane Family Fun Center.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission, city staff, and most importantly, the residents of Brisbane. My name is John Browning, and I want to be perfectly clear that at the present time, my group has no agreement of any kind with Universal Paragon Corporation. I'm a third generation from the peninsula. I was born in Stanford Hospital. I can still remember driving on Bayshore Boulevard and looking at the railroad yards when my dad took me to the Cow Palace up into San Francisco. I became a golf professional in 1968 while working for Bud Finger at the Stanford University Golf Course, and I was instrumental in developing the golf driving range facility where I was its manager. I'm in my 47 plus years as a professional instructor. I've given more than 30,000 golf lessons, and I have been involved in more than 25 mixed-use recreational projects in many capacities, including as a consultant, a designer, builder, owner, operator, manager, and other instrumental roles. In 2006, I had negotiated and was just about to sign a lease with the state of California to develop a golf driving range and supporting activities at the Candlestick Point State Park. But Governor Schwarzenegger closed all the state parks throughout California due to budget issues, and my project was terminated. I looked across the freeway at 684 acres of undeveloped land and approached Universal Paragon, UPC, to see if there might be an alternative site available that I could use for my recreation project. During the last 9 years, we've explored several sites. I even have a signed agreement for a mixed recreational use of 7.6 acres on Tunnel Avenue from UPC's General Manager Jonathan Scharfman, but there was no room for a golf driving range, which is still our main focus and the anchor use of our team's to-be-proposed project. I have studied, researched, and made several interim use site proposals to UPC on its vacant development property. And in that effort, I have attended focus groups, met with the City of Brisbane staff members, studied infrastructure, reviewed past use surveys, learned about the California Title 27 capping and closure mandates, attended Chamber of Commerce functions, met and received bids from local contractors, and more importantly, received from federal, state, county, city, and other entities having jurisdiction on UPC's development project, their mandates and regulations, and have exhaustively studied those issues and concerns. My knowledge of marketing combined with acquired resources have convinced me of the potential and success of a full-size modern golf driving range that incorporates the latest innovative technology available, supported by multiple family-oriented recreational activities with price points for Brisbane residents. This is an opportunity to create a full-scale combined public recreation and open space development for active, semi-active, and passive activities, and especially designed for all ages and all abilities. It would be the only affordable family entertainment complex of this size in the entire San Francisco Bay Area. Only a site this large having these characteristics and amenities at this geographic location in the northern peninsula San Francisco area can achieve and succeed as a destination family fun center featuring a fully diversified, family-oriented commercial recreation area. Now, how do you do that? Well, obviously you have an EIR that is up for review, and that's what we're here tonight to do. But I would ask any emergency rescue team member, and they will tell you that seconds matter. The emergency personnel at the existing fire station, unfortunately, have to take at least 20 seconds or more in leaving their station and driving the fire trucks and or emergency vehicles to Old County Road and past the park on Visitation Ave, or go straight across Bayshore Boulevard and around the skateboard park near City Hall before responding to the Brisbane residential and business properties. There are several sites that can house those emergency service vehicles west of Bayshore Boulevard, and thereby get to any emergency situation in the Brisbane Hills faster and hopefully in time. For example, we suggest the large empty lot next to and north of the strip mall by Bank of America. Also the skateboard park, although small, is still a viable area. Or the lot at Mariposa and Visitation. These are just to name a few. Why do I bring this up? Well, the reason is I'm making a suggestion for 4 new roadways that would add to the existing developer and community plans. At present, none of these specific plans offered show access that would come from the Brisbane Township to the southern areas west of the railroad tracks. If or when the why don't I got this little super duper deal here? Let me show you. In the developer's plan, you can see that there is no roadway other than a loop that comes from the roundhouse up to a roadway that they have delineated here. Same with their second plan. And then in the community plan, again, there is no roadway. There's nothing that connects this area of Brisbane to here. The only access to the east side of Bayshore Boulevard is the newly constructed overpass that hooks to Tunnel Road. There's nothing west of the railroad tracks. So to me, if or when the fire station is relocated, constructing a roadway from the existing traffic signal, circumventing the machinery and equipment company, continuing around Ice House Hill, let's see if I can, here you are, continuing around Ice House Hill and hooking up with the existing Industrial Way road that is a cul-de-sac right there, would allow for access from the township around Ice House Hill and hook up to there. Right now, the only way to get to Industrial Way is obviously going up Bayshore Boulevard, making a right, coming down Industrial Way. How do you service that realistically if there's an emergency? You can't. Okay? One emergency, let's see. Here, I haven't done public speaking in a while, so you have to forgive me here a little bit. Okay, so when the fire station is relocated, connecting a roadway from the existing traffic signal, circumventing machinery and equipment, and continuing around Ice House Hill and connecting to Industrial Way, would serve two purposes. One, emergency services will be able to get to the future land uses and to those existing businesses on Industrial Way faster by having access to the southern areas without having to go north, up the hill on Bayshore Boulevard, and then around down Industrial Way. It makes more sense and also makes for a simpler connection to the future Geneva extension. Secondly, roadway 2. By moving the present Lagoon Way north about a few hundred feet and connecting it from the off-ramp, on-ramp, Highway 101, going straight over to Tunnel Road, you have it serves a couple purposes. First, it makes for a better and easier connection from Highway 101 to Tunnel Road without having to go through all this here. Okay. Secondly, it separates the acreage of this 75 acres that is destined in both the developer and community's plan as being public open space. They even have solar, which I'll get into that a little bit later. But it separates the two to keep the one side and the second side so they're separate and they're easily accessible from the two new roads. Okay? And third, it will allow for a pedestrian parkway, which there is none, that goes along the lagoon. Okay? The possible pier, we put in a pier, whether that works or not, I don't know. These are just speculative possible ideas for the 75 acres of the Baylands. Okay, and let's see. And finally, the existing roadway needs to be replaced anyway. It is, if you've ever, and I'm sure you all have, driven on the Lagoon Way, this thing is windy, it's sunken, it's ridiculous. The roadway 3, our schematic shows that when a frontage road is put in, and it's on the plans, the frontage road will go all the way up here along Bayshore, obviously on the west side of the Bayshore, or 101, whatever you want to call it. Let's see, where am I? Past Visitation Creek, we propose that a road be constructed just north of the creek and have it cross over Tunnel Avenue, over the railroad tracks, and then connect to our proposed new roadway that we have connecting the traffic signal all the way up to Industrial Way. So this is what I'm talking about right here. And it goes from the new frontage road that will be put in, or along here, cross over Tunnel Road, cross over the railroad tracks, and come and hook up here. And fourth, and this is beyond my scope as far as our project is concerned, but Geneva. I've been to the Recology meetings here. I've studied the plans, but instead of the Geneva Road going like this and coming up north into, which is already a congested area, and with the railroad station, the expansion of Recology, all this, it should continue straight and go across 101 and this Villa Frontage Road. There are a perfect place for a clover leaf right here. Actually, you can see the clover leaf as it's being used right now for all the Sunset garbage scavenger. They go like that, come here and go like that. The off-ramp is like that. So, but anyway, this could be a perfect way of connecting Geneva and the freeway and get rid of the off-ramp, on-ramp right here that used to feed Candlestick Park. It's dangerous, it's hard to get to, it's through the Recology, and this will allow for the expansion of the Recology efforts as opposed to bringing the road this way and having it convolute and congest the area. So anyway, let's see. I'm almost finished. Okay, all three specific plans call for the majority of the the non-recreation commercial land uses to be located in the areas north and on either side of the proposed Geneva extension. There is some additional open and recreational use space allocated to the north of Visitation Creek and east of the Caltrain tracks and north of Icehouse Hill. Although there is additional proposed businesses on both the north and south sides of the Geneva extension as delineated, they all seem to show that if a line was drawn, if a line was drawn by right here, right straight across, now this is the developer's plan, this is the city's, the community plan, but if a line was drawn right straight across here, most of the commercial ventures that have been proposed by UPC and the CIR are up in the northern part, and all the balance is basically open space recreation. And that's where I come in. Attached on the last page, what I handed out to you, are a survey that Mr. John Sawicki initiated 3 or 4 years ago, I believe it was, asking for the residents as to what they would like to see out there as far as recreation and uses on the Baylands. These are a composite. I listed all of them down there, and I gave her a little bit of scenario on the right side as what could be done at each of these activity centers. But in summation, I again want to be perfectly clear that at the present time, my group has no agreement of any kind in place with Universal Paragon Corporation. Although I've been in contact with UPC, Brisbane staff, and other jurisdictional entities having a say in the closure, use, and infrastructure of our proposed project on the site in question, no finalization can be made until the outcome of the environmental impact report and have it be determined and or by my team can make an agreement with UPC. There are several scenarios that we hope we'll be able to work out with UPC. We will explore and proceed with those avenues in hopes of reaching a long-term lease, a lease option, a contract to purchase, and or an outright purchase of some, if not all, of UPC's development property. What I have offered at this meeting tonight is our recommendations for the roadway systems that we believe will make for a smooth, safe, and convenient traffic flow to serve the areas of the southern section of the development, and to show how the past surveys from the Brisbane residents listing their desired open space and recreational uses can be achieved on the 75 acres south of Visitation Creek and north of the lagoon. We should strongly believe that affordable family entertainment, along with a mixed-use recreational complex, will serve Brisbane and the entire Bay Area. It will bring hundreds of jobs, tax revenues, local commerce, community pride to Brisbane, as well as the needed toxic site remediations. Thank you for letting me address the Planning Commission, city staff, the residents of Brisbane, the media, and those of the greater community. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes.
I'm sure you might have one or two.
So a full-size modern golf driving range
Yeah.
is 75 acres?
No, it's 25.
25.
No, that's showing. Could you turn the lights back down, whoever turned them on? Please? All right, so let me get back. Oh, that was the button I wasn't supposed to hit. All right. There, right here. Yep. This shows where Visitation Creek is.
Right.
And this is obviously the lagoon. And all this is about 75 acres.
Okay.
Now you'll notice that I have wetlands in here because we certainly don't want to abort the birds and the sanctuary and actually just the wetlands themselves. There's also wetlands along here. We propose to put little rest areas and little lookout spots so you can watch the birds, see the birds on both sides. Okay. This is an amphitheater. Well, let's see, I got all this stuff here. We have soccer field. There's the fire station, and that's where you'd like to move it, and then we'd have this roadway that would go around the machinery equipment company. All right. This is the existing lagoon road, obviously, with all its humps and bumps and whatever. And it's only a 2-lane, and where can a pedestrian walk around there? But if we can move it up to here, and again, hooking it up to the off-ramp, on-ramp, and then to Tunnel Road, we free up all this space. We allow for, again, wetlands, but we also allow for pedestrian walkway. We allow for on both sides. And then this is the road that would be from the fire station. Yep, there you are, up and around Ice House Hill and hooking to Industrial Way. And again, this is the only road and with the overpass that goes on west of Bayshore Boulevard. It hooks up to Tunnel Road. There's nothing in here. Okay, next. And this is the road that we would like to hook up from this frontage road that will be installed, and then have it go over Tunnel Road, over the railroad tracks, then hook up to this area. So there's free flow from this off-ramp to here. There's free flow across and down into the city of Brisbane. And this is what I'm talking about as far as the Geneva extension. Now, obviously, this is not my bailiwick, but Geneva extension, the plans show that it starts going like this. Well, look at all the how the congestion that causes by putting the road that way. If it goes straight across and you put a little clover leaf here and here, and there's room for a clover leaf right here because it's basically already there, now you have free flow, and that goes over to the Leonard.
Where does that go?
Huh?
Where does that go?
It starts, here's Geneva.
No, the right-hand side.
I'm sorry?
The eastern side. Where does that road go off to the east there?
Well, it could stop right here and just be an off-ramp, on-ramp, or I'd like to see it go over into the Lennar development. And it's a good flow from Geneva all the way through. It brings the people from the Bayview over into our site and for the commerce. So.
Have you done an estimate of parking and daily average trips or anything like that?
I didn't show you that, did I? Let me go back. Okay, the parking this is all solar. This is all solar, and this will be solar on top of the restaurants or retail. But underneath this, it would be a 2 to 3 story parking garage, which would handle thousands of cars and allow for the bowling alley, theater, fitness center, amphitheater, restaurants, miniature golf, batting cages, water park if that's allowable or whatever. Again, I'm not offering this as the plan. I'm just showing what could be done out there with the acreage that's involved and keeping all the recreation south and the other development and the open space north.
So how many acres are you thinking would be for the parking structure and the solar?
Well, I believe UPC wanted like 15 to 17 acres of solar.
Right.
This is going to be somewhere around 12, just in this area. And then this will pick up more along here, which would be another 4 to 5. And then along here. So you're still talking somewhere around 15 acres of solar, which should be more than enough, especially when you have solar here, and how are you going to transport electricity from here all the way up to the other development area way up north? You lose a lot of electricity doing that.
Have you compared the output of that many acres of solar versus the needs?
No,
of
I
the
would
facility?
love to if I had some point that I could
Yeah.
develop it. It's just
Right.
I've spent 9 years going through this, inside out, backwards and forwards. I've talked to solar people. I've talked to the infrastructure, the putting in, extending the sewer treatment along tunnel, underneath tunnel to here. Your corporate yard doesn't even have running water.
How many acres is that water park?
Water, it's about 8 to 10, somewhere in there. But it's not just a water park. You'll have the miniature golf going through it. Part of it will be covered. Part of it will have restaurant, snack bar type areas. But again, this is not. UPC has not let me present this as even a possible deal because the EIR process is, precludes them from doing that. This is just. I'm just trying to show you that all the stuff that was pointed out as far as what the residents of Brisbane would like out there can fit in this one area, south of Visitation Creek and north of the lagoon, and still have wetlands, still have parks, still have pedestrian walkways, bicycle paths, the rest. Now, if you look at the entire area, all this area right here is the lumberyard. And I've been told that they're trying to work out some lease or agreement or purchase of moving the lumberyard in this area. Okay? And I don't know, to me, a carport is the same as the ceiling of the storage of where their lumber, and why couldn't you put solar panels on top of that? I mean, that's a very viable suggestion, but what that does is it opens up all this space. And in the last page, I did show some things that could happen, some future activities, and that is a soccer stadium. There was something about when they thought the Olympics was going to come here, they wanted to put a soccer stadium. Well, they showed the soccer stadium on top of the 75 acres, which is all garbage fill and whatnot. It should go right here, if in fact it does. That would be a perfect place for it. And as far as basketball arenas, Olympic-sized swimming pool, look at all the land that you all have, not even touching either side of Geneva and all up north of it. There's so much good that can be done. It's mind-boggling, to tell you the truth.
So tell me more about the golf range. I really know nothing.
Okay, I hate fences. You've seen golf ranges with fences?
No, I don't know much about golf. I'm totally ignorant. That's why I'm asking.
No, you're not.
So you said that there is not one in the peninsula, this area. Where is
there are
the nearest?
Two golf driving ranges in San Francisco. One is at the Presidio, and it's a triangular-shaped driving range that is you can't hit drivers or long shots on it because of the size. The only other one is at Harding Park, both of them on the northwest side of San Francisco. They did have one at China Basin, but that closed down, and that's part of the development out there. So right now, the closest driving range would be down in Burlingame, and was built backwards. It's built up, and you're hitting the balls uphill, into the wind, into the setting sun, and the play is not anywhere where it should be. It's just actually backwards. Yeah, there's one in Colma on the little 9-hole golf course they have out there, and that's it. So once they close the one at China Basin, and part of my team, or at least someone who's considering being part of my team, was the owner of that, and they did a spectacular business, and it was very difficult to get to. This is perfect as far as off-ramp, on-ramp.
There's one in San Bruno also, right?
I built that one, yes.
Yeah.
It's on Sneath Lane, too.
That's right.
So the golf driving range would have turf?
It would be mats, and there would be turf for people to hit, but that has to be rotated because of the size. You don't want all the divots to be there too long. You want to cover them and replant. And so you stagger the grass teeing area around as it goes around.
Oh, okay.
But if you look at most golf driving ranges, because they're so small in area, they have giant fencing on the side, like I had to do at San Bruno. Well, because it's 400 yards in diameter, people can't hit the ball 400 yards. So you don't need fences. You hit at the other people, but if you can hit them, I'll give you the facility. They can't do it.
So do you have an estimate of how many parking spaces are in that 12-acre garage?
Well, I'm figuring somewhere around 800 to 1,000. I'm hoping it's full all the time, which means people are using it all the time. But seriously, there's something like 200 and some odd per acre, if I'm not mistaken, on a regular parking lot. So if you have 10 acres and it's 2 or 3 stories, you can figure out how many. More than enough, but it'd be hidden because it would be at the elevation of Tunnel Road, and then it would go up 2 or possibly 3 stories, and you wouldn't see it because of the planting of the trees and whatnot along there. So the visibility, aesthetics are a major factor for recreation facilities, and I'm all for hiding things we don't need to see.
I know you have a wide variety of proposed uses out here, but do you have any idea, like, what the proposed duration a customer might spend at the facility?
That's another reason why I designed that kind of like that, hoping that it'll sooner or later be a part of it. And that is families have no place to go. I'm 3rd generation from here. I don't know if any of you were here in the 70s, but they closed Playland at the beach. No more Playland. Closest thing to Playland was down in Redwood City at Malibu Grand Prix. That has since been closed. You have to go all the way down to Sunnyvale, and maybe a little past, to get half of what I'm proposing here. And that's why it'd be a family destination center where families can come in for 3 or 4 hours. Dad go hit some golf balls. The kids go to miniature golf. They meet back at the food court and have some food or whatnot and decide what else they want to do, play some miniature golf. Who knows? But I would say the duration would be 2 to 3 hours. And we do it by volume. We do it by time. We're not going to gouge. But once they're in, they have a little card, a little, what do you call these things? I'm old, I forget. A little debit card type thing. And they come in, they just punch it in, and they pay like $5 to $10 an hour for free use, as much as they want to do, wherever they want to do it. Food would be extra, but nominal.
That's per person.
Yeah. But you have a family. If you have a family come in, you'd give them a little discount. We want to do it by volume, not by the gouge. If I get 1,000 people coming in there at $10 a day, that's not bad. $20. You're talking about some major revenue and major jobs. I mean, do you realize how many jobs it would take to satisfy this? I mean, this would be great.
Alternative to mall.
Yeah.
Huh. So, in your other facility that you built, how many people are coming to it, do you think, in a week?
The facility I built at Sneath Lane was the 2nd highest grossing golf driving range in the United States in 1989. It was put in as the top 10 golf driving ranges in America by Golf Illustrated or one of those. I'm getting old, I'm forgetting. But that can be shown easily. We were grossing $1.5 million a year. And you talk about the wind guy that was here earlier. If you don't know what wind is, go up to San Bruno, to Sneath Lane, and you'll enjoy wind.
And that level has continued, or it's leveled off?
Yeah, it's still doing well, but see, they don't even, that's the only thing they have there. They don't even have a food service. They don't have a miniature golf. They don't have batting cages. They don't have just simple things that a diversified family would do. I mean, we have softball around here. We have hardball. We have teams. Well, out to your park up there on whatchamacallit, the new park you built. It's beautiful, beautiful park. All right, but this would draw people from the entire Bay Area. This would be a fantastic venue for, and I can't drop any names, but being in the golf business as long as I have, I played golf with some major Hall of Famers in all sports and given them golf lessons. And there are two of them that were like to set up shop in the batting cages and do a football clinic. So there, and some golfers too. But again, I've been in this business a long time. And you have the most beautiful spot to do all this, especially with the Railroad Museum tying all this together. It would be a fantastic, fantastic. Don't get me started. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. This is great.
Well, you were the perfect one after we fell asleep with no coffee.
Told you I'd wake you up.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Any other questions from the commission?
Yeah, did you present this idea at all to the Universal Paragon?
No, they don't want to look at it until they get the EIR passed.
I see.
They have some hints on it. He now is going to see it, I assume, and look at it. I'd like to work with them, but if there's a way of purchasing the property, there's a lot of money is going to be spent in building this whole thing. The cheapest thing, believe it or else, is the golf driving range, because all it is a tee, and you hit the balls out there. That's it. But when you talk about water park, you talk about batting cages, you talk about theater, bowling alley, things like that. I would be looking for people to invest in or take it over themselves. I certainly don't want to be a restaurateur and be in the kitchen. So we would find qualified business and entrepreneurs that would take over these different entities.
The reason I ask that is because it will have a lot of impacts on a lot of things that CEQA requires.
Oh, yeah.
Traffic and all of that.
Yeah.
So in a specific plan of some sort, there should be some more details.
I'd be totally full. Yes, most assuredly.
Yeah.
From engineers to civil engineers to, and there's an environmental firm that has done part of the EIR. I'm sure they would be brought in to, for the closing and capping of the site, not just our site, but the entire site.
I had two quick questions.
Yeah.
How long do you think it would take to build this kind of recreation area? And then do you have an idea of the lifespan of this type of recreation area?
I'm not going to pretend like I know the lifespan of the water park, but theaters, how long do they last? 25, 30 years. The driving range could be up and running in 6 months. Again, it's just putting tees and mats where people hit balls. Now, when the solar thing around, I'm not sure how long it would take to build that, but solar is getting more improved, if you will, all the time. So that might be replaced in 5 to 10 years. But again, it would be an ongoing project, and it's not ready to be developed regardless this minute anyway, because of the Title 27 mandates for closing, capping a landfill and or a garbage. And this was a garbage thing. I used mine down Marsh Road, and I know what we threw away, and I'm sure some of y'all know. So there are things that have to be mitigated, obviously, in the ecological.
Thank you.
So who wants to sign up for golf lessons? There's much more that can be shown, and as you say, the questions that you have would take engineering and getting bids and whatnot, estimates for all the different stuff, and that's going to be a major undertaking in itself. But like I say, the golf range would go in first, and then miniature golf and batting cages, and then as the area is available to be developed, then we move forward with the balance of the property, if we can work out something with Universal Paragon. But there are other spots to do this too. I mean, that right there is so much land. I can see putting in a brand new soccer stadium right there. I mean, that would be a perfect spot for it. There are other things that can be put in, like baseball and Olympic-sized swimming pools, and as long as it can be recreation, I'm in.
Great.
Okay. Any further questions?
No.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Browning.
Appreciate your time.
So I have not received any speaker cards, but does anyone from the audience want to ask any questions of the organizations?
Oh, what, my organization?
No, anyone from the audience. So could we get a speaker card for you if you are interested in asking a question of the three organizations who have presented? No. You know what, Miss Barbary, I'll just fill one out for you. I've been doing it as we go along.
I was just wondering about the Family Fun Center, if they had thought where this water, if they have any idea about water, reclamation, gray water, where their water would come from. I'm just curious.
I don't foresee the driving range being all grass. I see it being, I call it turf, or it's not sod, it's turf. Therefore, there wouldn't be any watering for that. As far as the balance, there's very little that needs to be irrigated. The wetlands, by definition, will be on their own as far as growing and serving those two sites. I can't see the thing, but if you could, thank you. All right, so what I'm trying to show you, there it is there's very little area that will be grass. I mean, the amphitheater has a little grass area there for families and kids to fly a kite or play frisbee or whatnot. This would not be grassed. It might be initially for a little bit, but it would mostly be the mats and whatnot. And this area right here, there's a baseball field here. There's a grass little picnic area right here, and a little area over here. So there's very little, if any, irrigation that would go on. Water park? The water park is self-contained. It has its own filtering system. Once the water is there, as a matter of fact, here's the machinery and equipment. They have a giant pump there that would go to recirculate the water and keep it going. It's a recirculation, sterilization, water treatment that is part of that. So it's not new water. Well, I guess once in a while you have to add some water because it gets splashed or evaporated. Other than that, I don't see a lot of ongoing watering or irrigation.
Any other questions from the audience for the three organizations? No? Okay.
Great.
Thank you. So again, we invite all three organizations to submit the presentations and or their written material to the staff to be included. Okay. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a card or anything? I just see my name is John Browning.
You said it again?
Do you have a card or anything?
Unfortunately, I don't. I have some come because they're
Can we use the Yahoo?
new LLC. What?
Can we use the email contact that you provided? Yeah.
You bet.
Oh,
It was on the
Kind
presentation.
of
Here we
catchy
go.
tune when you become golfers.
no.
That was part of the presentation. No, I copied that from the presentation he
I'll write
gave.
it
So
down. Thank you.
Okay. I can give you two after. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you again for the organization's presentations. At this point, I wanted to let everyone know, as a continuation of the previous internal Brisbane Community Group presentations, we received a letter on November 30th from a Brisbane resident, Mariah Lena Nememan at 443 Alvarado, saying that she supports the renewable energy alternative proposed by the citizens group CREBO. So that will be entered into the record as well. And at this point, unless the commission has any other questions, we can make a motion to continue to December 10th.
I make a motion to continue to December 10th.
And we're starting at 6:30 at that meeting?
Yes.
Is that right?
And we'll remind again at the end.
Yes, I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.
Okay. So on to the consent calendar. Again, to remind everyone, items listed on the consent calendar can be considered routine and will be acted upon collectively by one motion adopting the Planning Department's recommendation, unless a member of the public, the commission, or its staff asks to remove an item to discuss it. So prior to the motion, the chairperson will ask if anyone wishes to remove an item from the consent calendar.
Okay.
We got a letter from.
Right. But I wanted to ask if anyone here currently has any.
I have a large number of comments on the minutes from the 8th of October that I would like to discuss.
Okay. Any other commissioners have anything they would like to raise as well? No? Okay, so Commissioner Anderson, you want to go ahead?
All right. All right, I'd like to start a little bit out of order. I'm going to start in the middle with a comment from Jonathan Scharfman from UPC. The minutes said
And that's on page.
Which,
Oh,
October 13th?
I'm sorry. I did not take notes in my notes.
Are we speaking of which meeting?
Meeting.
Oh, the minutes
October 8th.
of October 8th.
Okay.
It's the second page, I believe, the last paragraph, page 3.
Okay, I didn't
Okay.
print it.
Thank you.
Yes, anyway. The minutes say that he mentioned a correction, but in fact he asked Lloyd to double check whether a correction was necessary vis-a-vis the report of hydrocarbons in OU1 because he was not sure if there were any hydrocarbons in OU1, and he asked Lloyd to double check that. And I wanted to bring that up as a specific example because right now we are taking summary minutes, and not every word that anyone says is going to be recorded. Right. But if someone makes a specific request to us, whether or not we act on that request, I would like all requests to be recorded in the minutes. I believe I have in my notes that Dr. Mearns later clarified that there are VOCs and Bunker C in OU1, but I didn't see notes to that effect anywhere in the officially recorded minutes. That was only in my personal notes. So based on Mr. Scharfman's request that we double check whether there's hydrocarbons in OU1, I would like staff to either consult with Lloyd or go back to the records and clarify, if Mr. Scharfman wants to know if there's Bunker C in OU1, then we should tell him, and that should be part of the record, because if someone else at a future time pulls the minutes, it would be good to have it self-consistent. Okay, so then rolling back to the beginning, Mr. Zola explained the site remediation and Title 27 landfill closure process. It would be really helpful if there's an explanation, rather than just capturing in the minutes that an explanation was given, to either summarize what the explanation was or at least have a reference to what was explained, because that part's not clear to me. I have some points from my notes, but I'll just email them to you rather than reading them. But because it would be good for someone to check to see if my notes are at all accurate. Let's see. Commissioner Munir requested that Mr. Zoll elaborate on the water quality mitigation portions of his presentation. Mr. Zola reviewed that topic again as requested. Again, if clarification was necessary, it would be helpful to say what was clarified, because that might be a point of contention that we want to go back to draw out. In the comments from Joel Diaz, a salient point that was missing from the minutes is that he pointed out that HSR wants to use the landfill side of the site, and HSR would make the renewable energy alternative even more attractive. I would request that be added to the record. Then on the minutes on Mary Gutenkamp's public comments, she said in the minutes that the baylands will be toxic forever. But a very important question that she raised there is that since the baylands are going to be toxic forever, she asked if the protective measures such as the clay caps, if they can be counted on to also be protective forever. And I would like that added to the record. The minutes state that John Burr suggested that the baylands be returned to the bay. It's unclear to me whether he was being facetious, but his main point was that he was claiming that the baylands were filled without proper authorization. And so under some interpretation, you have to return things to their natural habitat, which would imply putting it back to the bay. But I think he was speaking facetiously. He also made mentions of piles of batteries, fires that burned underground for a long period of time, a large bulldozer that sunk into the landfill and was lost. I think those should all be in the public record. And he also made a specific request that the issue of housing on the baylands be put to a vote of the people. And finally, Anya Miller requested that the phrase "no traces currently exist" should be changed to "no visible traces exist" in relation to the description of the Champion Speedway in the FEIR. That's all I have for the 8th of October.
Okay. Any other additional comments for October 8th?
I think Mr. Anderson, Commissioner Anderson covered pretty much what some of the things I had in mind. Thank you.
Okay. Any other things, Commissioner Munir?
No?
Okay. For October 13th, anyone here have any comments?
Well, I've got a question on the procedure, because we have a request from Anya Miller.
Right, but that does not pertain to October 8th. It's October 13th and 22nd.
Right, I'm ready to move on to talking about the 13th and the 22nd.
Right.
Are we going to continue discussion based on a later date based on her request that the minutes be amended?
No, we can also make a motion to have the amendments just simply included. Therefore, it can just simply be included and amended that way. Because I don't have any dispute with any suggestions that were made. Mm-hmm. Unless commissioners here have any additions or modifications that they want.
On the minutes of 13 October, I did have one section that I thought perhaps was not correctly or completely captured, but I didn't understand what was meant. So, and I don't have adequate notes myself. From a person who I may or may not be married to, but I didn't have a chance to ask her. And on the minutes of 22nd of October, I also had a question on comments made by Glenn Feldman, but I was not able to ask her. And I don't know if staff would know the answer to either of these questions either. So.
So are we referring to, let's stay with October 13th, and we'll move on to the 22nd?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
In the minutes, it says, Barbara Ebel said that significant unavoidable impacts are potentially avoidable if the city does not issue occupancy permits. And I believe that what she was actually saying was that withholding occupancy permits was the only tool the city had if significant impacts are not remediated, and was concerned that this would cause litigation. Okay. I see the member of the audience is nodding in agreement. So perhaps I could just suggest that that be entered.
Yeah, so could you email that to the staff?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Any other commissioners?
No.
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 Okay. So, on to the minutes of October 22nd. Anyone here have any comments?
I'll make my one comment of the part that I didn't understand.
Okay.
The minutes stated Glenn Feldman said that she disagrees with this, as indicators are saying that greenhouse gas emissions are to be close to zero by 2050. So there should be additional mitigation measures. And that sounds contradictory, and also I don't see how greenhouse emissions could really be going to zero in 2050 unless perhaps you're talking about just one segment, and if so, which segment?
I think that was what she was saying was aspirational, that the, from my notes, that in order for us to turn the tide on greenhouse emissions and not have a total disaster, they would had to be at this level.
Oh, I see.
By 2015.
I see. Greenhouse emissions, ideally, aspirationally, should be brought to zero by 2050.
Yeah.
In order to
Not
pay,
that they are expected to
right,
be.
they should and must.
Oh, maybe the member of the audience has a comment.
I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to interject here with the chair's permission.
Sure, go ahead.
And I also am reluctant to speak on Glenn's behalf, but since she's not here, I believe Governor Brown's new bill requires that built environments meet net zero by 2050.
Yeah.
So
2050.
that,
Okay.
Okay,
I
so
recall that-
buildings will be net zero by
Yeah,
2050.
Yes.
I
not
think
zero
that's
to
what she
zero.
was
I
referring
think that was
to
the
based on
context
your
that she
note.
was talking about.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway. Okay.
So that resolves the contradiction?
Yeah,
Yes.
that would resolve my contradiction and
Okay.
sounds plausible, and that's the
Oh.
only comment I have from that
Okay.
section of minutes.
We thank
Thank
the
you, Mr.
member
Yao.
of the audience.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other comments aside from the email message that will be included as part of the amendments for October 22nd?
Yeah.
Here? From anyone here? No? No. Okay. All right, so we can go ahead and,
So do you want all those minutes brought back with these revisions, or are you approving any of them tonight, or no?
I think you should bring
Subject
back
to revision?
Yeah.
They're all coming
Read
back?
yes, please.
Yeah. It would be, in the future, it'd be more expeditious if commissioners do have comments on the draft minutes, when they get them the week before the meeting, if we could get those comments and distributed, and we can incorporate them in as opposed to after the fact. If that's convenient, that would be.
I'll try, but this time it was Thanksgiving, so I didn't do it until yesterday.
Yeah. I think that's a great suggestion. Okay, so that will be brought back to us at the next meeting. That's December 10th. Thank you. Okay, on to oral communications. Does anyone in the audience want to address the commission on any issue not on the agenda? please step forward. I'll create a speaker card for you as well.
Oh, yes.
Your name, please?
My name is Steve Mobia, M-O-B-I-A. I'm sorry that, was it John Browning took off?
Okay, sorry. Are you a Brisbane resident or?
I'm a Brisbane resident, yes. Yeah. And I haven't come to a commission meeting before, so I guess I should find out the procedure for presenting an idea.
You're
It's
here.
okay.
That's the first step.
Okay.
No. Oh, go ahead.
All right. Okay. I did go to the Baylands office and look at their drawings, and it seemed to me that everything I saw was very similar to what I see. I work in Redwood City and Foster City. I've gone to, and a lot of the development really didn't seem that distinctive. It seems like it's pretty much a typical kind of idea, and it just seems like a waste of this area, this special place that the Baylands is. And just as John mentioned, you know, we had Playland at the beach, we had the Treasure Island, which was built for the World's Fair 39 and the Pan Pacific Exhibition, and all these wonderful places are no longer around. And so that's one thing, is that there's not a lot of recreational and interesting entertainment areas. And the other is that there's a lot of tourists that come to San Francisco, and they know about Silicon Valley. You know, it's close by, but there's no attraction for that. You know, there's the Computer History Museum down in Mountain View, but that's about as much, and that's kind of a dry, you know, it's not a real family entertainment thing, but it's interesting. So it occurred to me that it would be a good idea to merge this Silicon Valley attraction with the amusement center idea, and to have various tech companies put together something similar to what, you know, like say Tomorrowland and at Disneyland in the 60s, where there were sponsored rides by different companies that I could see them really competing against each other to try to create the most amazing, most unusual and distinctive thing. And they'd be showing their wares, but they would also be entertaining and an exciting thing for families. And I'm not talking about a cookie cutter type Six Flags amusement park where it's all roller coasters and, you know, spinning rides and things like that, you know, typical things. There would be rides, but they'd be more like exhibitions. It would be more educational and hopefully fascinating things for everybody. There's a large maker movement in the area. I don't know if anyone's been to the Maker Fair in San Mateo. Every year, like a weekend will bring 90,000 something people to this. And there's a lot of do-it-yourself inventors and artists that come there. And I would imagine this place to not only have the permanent exhibits by the tech companies, but also have exhibition halls for temporary exhibits and where inventors could show what they're up to. And it just seems that the location, being right near the airport and between the airport and San Francisco, you know, people come to San Francisco, they go right to Brisbane, but if they saw something really interesting in Brisbane, like someone in a cab saying, "What is that over there?" You know, something lit up interestingly at night. I just can't see it failing, really. I think it would be a fascinating thing. It would be very unique. It would be a world. I would imagine a worldwide attraction. And you know, personally, I like the Baylands as open space. That would be my preference, have an open space at Parkland or whatever. But I know there's a lot of big money interests into making it otherwise. But I hate to see this mediocre sort of typical kind of the industrial buildings and townhouses, and I just hate to see that special area being used that way. And it's such a unique location, So that's just what I wanted to say. I'm not Elon Musk or, George Lucas or other people that might have more connections with the companies that would be involved in this. But I think if we put out the idea publicly, you would get people stepping forward who had some interest in combining entertainment and technology and entertainment and education. I don't know. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? Okay. On to written communications. Just want to acknowledge some of the things we've received. We received a invitation from HIP Housing.
Here, this is open.
Yeah, thank you.
San Mateo County Sustainable.
I guess, is it even relevant anymore?
Yes, it's very relevant that they have concerns similar to what was brought up earlier when we were talking about Airbnb.
Okay.
Talking about restricting it based on the type and duration of the rental model got there.
Yeah.
Listing, and that they were concerned that their organization might. Oops, my mic was off. They were concerned that their organization, which matches up homeowners with people who need affordable long-term housing, might be penalized by restrictions designed to curtail short-term housing.
Okay, thanks. I just received the letter, so I have not had a chance to read it. Thank you for that summary. So that's HIP Housing. Then we have a letter from Sustainable San Mateo County sharing their accomplishments and looking forward to the year 2016. We have a postcard about Saturday, December 5th, 10 to 12:30, Brisbane Bayland Sustainable Design Tours. Housing Leadership Council, this is outdated. They had a annual Housing Leadership Day, October 23rd. Brisbane, yeah, BBBK sent a notice that they had a meeting November 17th. We have a newsletter from Bay Area Monitor and a pamphlet from Uncommon Ground. Does anyone else have anything written to share?
Did you mention the letter from Mrs. Nieminen?
Yeah, that was mentioned under the public hearing.
Oh,
it's the last item, yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. That's it for written communications. Any items initiated by staff? None here, but has anything changed?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Any items initiated by the commission? No?
I want to mention one thing, and I've been trying to have the city fix this problem, but it hasn't been done. And today there was an incident at that particular location where the mail truck, that people that bring the mail, his truck went upside down.
Oh,
where was
right
this?
in front of my house, that hairpin turn. And the poor guy, his head was between the truck and the road.
And where is this located?
Right near in front of my house.
I know, but
the
what's-
hairpin turn that goes from
I know, but what's the street?
Glen Park and Humboldt Road, that hairpin turn. And luckily, there were some people working at my house. They saw that, and his head was stuck between the roadway, and the truck was on top of his head. And if these guys, the two of these guys, they took big, 4x4, trying to lift it to get his head out and from underneath there. And luckily they were able to do that, and then he pushed his head back, and I think he is seriously injured. And I requested many times to the city to do this thing. And also I talked to the police, one of the police lady was there. Her name is Morgan. And she said that the police department has also requested many times to the city manager that something should be done. So I requested earlier when, about 3 or 4 years ago, and continuously mentioned that, and I finally got the response from the city engineer that it doesn't meet the FHWA requirement. You need to have certain number of accidents and all of that. And my position is that that's a reactive action. It's not a proactive action. We don't want somebody to be killed there before we do that. And in 1997, city already had the plans and the money to do that, and some reason it was pushed aside. That's why when I built my house, they made me do all those improvements for that particular turn. So I'm still really concerned that why city is not paying any attention before somebody gets killed. And I'm really hoping and I'm praying that this particular gentleman, I hope, it was very critical situation there, and I hope he doesn't die. But I think he's got a serious head injuries, definitely, if you have that several tons car on top of you. So I request that he should mention that to the city manager and city engineer again, that forget about the FHWA, critical studies and all that. That's meant for the bigger cities and all that. We have a critical situation here, and I'm sure one of these days, if somebody is going to get killed, the city will be sued because there are a number of incidents that happen. So I don't think it takes a lot of money to fix it. I think the whole project may be 150,000, 200,000. And if you don't do that, we will have a serious condition here. So can you pass that message on to the city manager?
What was the proposed change at that intersection?
Pardon me?
I was wondering what the proposed change was. How would you fix it?
Oh, they were going to widen that particular turn, and
into Earth Canyon, or
no, towards the other corner where that hairpin turn is. Canyon side.
Out towards the embankment?
No, out towards that corner house, that triangular house.
Further
they're going to take some portion of that, and they're going to extend that and make that little gentle curve. And it was a pretty good design. And actually, I had to do the storm drainage, which is still sitting there. For that particular reason, they told me that this is where it's going to be. And they never did it. And I really don't have any good reason why we cannot spend little money and do something that's really dangerous. And that particular corner has been used by a number of people because that's one of the ways to go to the Humboldt and Kings Road. And the one time there was previous accident that happened when the Camaro went upside down, and luckily he hit one of the house and stopped. Otherwise, he would have gone all the way to the end of San Bruno because the hill is so steep. So I hope the city will do something. I'm sure the post office will have some kind of inquiry of that, and my people were interviewed by them. So again, I make a plea that don't look at the FHWA standards only. This is a situation that's unique, and it's very steep hill, and something needs to be done. So hopefully this may wake them up. If not, then I don't know what else we can do. Thanks.
I don't know what the procedure for addressing the commission is.
Just go up and give your name and the chairs. I'm sorry. Point of order here. All people who want to speak to the commission need to fill out a speaker card, but I'll go ahead and fill out one for you. But that actually should have been addressed at the oral communications for any issue that is not on the agenda. So please step forward for today.
Thank you. Regarding
you have your name?
My Chris D. Monterey, Brisbane resident. I live near the hairpin turn discussed, and I saw the accident this afternoon. And I was thinking one possible immediate solution is to put large signs on both sides of the hairpin turn, 5 miles an hour hairpin turn or something to that effect, because people who aren't familiar with the turn, even though the post office guy should be, maybe he was a new guy, should realize that you can't go on the inside of the turn and keep all four wheels on the ground. And it's very destabilizing for a vehicle on the inside of the turn. If you go on the outside of the turn, you have to be in the opposing lane. It's a hazard. But an immediate solution would be to properly sign it with large enough signs that make an impression. Maybe a speed bump or something. Probably just signs, at least, are very easy to do. And to make, for people that aren't familiar with the turn, they come up, some people come up that Glen Park way 50 miles an hour, and then they come to the hairpin turn. So I think some cautionary signs would be an immediate solution to, slow people down, at least advise people.
We did try that. I think they put the mirror over there.
The mirror?
The corner there, but nobody looks at the mirror.
No.
Because the thing is, people coming from down below, going up, they get stuck in the middle of the hill. And sometimes they have to reverse it because that truck cannot make it. So signages are good, but a lot of people don't even pay any attention to the sign. Freeway, you have all over 65 miles per hour. You see people drive 80 miles per hour. So I think this is a time that we should get serious and do something about that.
Yeah.
And but signage is a good idea.
It's just quick. It's quick. It's not going to be 100%, I'm sure. But maybe some slowing.
Yeah.
Some remarkably slow speed limit might catch somebody's attention if the sign is big enough and there is not just a 5 miles per hour, but also a
sign
showing you're going this way and the street's going this way. So you have a diagram showing that's related to the actual angle of the hairpin turn. So they realize not only are you going up the street and you're going to go slow, you're going to go back on. You're going to double back on yourself. So maybe a graphically accurate sign would help. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback, but I think the staff is going to go ahead and share this with the city manager now.
Yeah, we'll relay that to the city engineer and the city manager. And maybe for the point of clarification for your audience is the sort of improvements in the right-of-way really aren't in the planning commission's sort of responsibility or purview to make those kind of decisions, but we'll relay it to others who are in that position.
Yeah, actually, I should have said that at the time when oral communications, but I didn't. So.
No, it's okay.
I'm
Thank you for that reminder.
Commissioner here.
Any subcommittee reports or updates from the commission? No, right? Okay. On to adjournment. Could I have a motion?
Again, just to clarify for the audience and others who might be watching, is we're adjourning for 6:30 for regular business, and then the presentation, the Baylands presentation, would still be agendized for 7:30. So.
Thank you for that clarification.
Well, I'll motion then that we adjourn until the next regular meeting of the 10th of December at 6:30 p.m.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good night.